Hello friends, how are you today? I have an interesting story for you today. It's super interesting because I made a video about prayer as directed energy and light as directed energy, how to use that and up-level the prayer work and energy work that you do. And then today I met someone whose story fit so perfectly with what I had described in the video that I just had to share this with you. I will make a Schumann video coming up soon, but this is where it's at right now. It's so important. You may be listening to this at some point in the future, but I'm recording this as there are a lot of Americans stuck behind the lines in Afghanistan. Our soldiers were just attacked, and a lot of people are praying over the situation and praying for the people there and the people in the country. And so that's why it's important to talk about this right now, because what I can do is offer ways to talk about how to work with energy and the human element of that and how to up-level our skill sets. This is the story of Alfredo, and I met him today. I needed to go somewhere and he was driving, and we had a wonderful talk. And it's so interesting because so often when I just run into people, I end up having these amazing spiritual conversations. I just happen to always run into people who are into talking about, the influence of God in their lives, or, that kind of thing. He had asked me what I do, and I told him I make inspirational videos. I asked him if I could tell his story, and he said, sure, yes, He was talking about how his father, he's from Mexico, and how his father would get up at 4 a.m. and pray for everyone in the family, pray for every child. And he came from a big family. But then not only would he pray for the family, but he would pray for like the president of the country. He would pray for, key people who influenced, current events. So when people do things like get up at 3 or 4 in the morning and pray, it's a whole practice in and of itself. I have known people who do this practice. In fact, I met someone several years ago who did this type of prayer practice. And after I met him, he asked me if he could include me in his prayers. And he had the names and pictures of people that he had met in his life, and every day he would pray for every one of these people. He was a Hawaiian man, a really beautiful man. And it was a similar discussion about the importance of family and the power of prayer and sending love and sending light. So back to Alfredo's story. So Alfredo's father was a man that did that. And as soon as he told me that, I knew that his father must have just had this incredible, powerful spiritual energy or presence. But then what he told me was that the fact that his dad was praying for him, and his dad told him often that he was praying for him, he said that it made him want to be better. It made him want to treat himself better. It made him do things that it occurred to him because he knew his dad was praying for him. His dad was, in a way, elevating him, right? He elevated himself, but his father was praying for his highest good, his highest outcomes, for God's protection for him, and on and on. And I'm going to relate this to the mechanisms I talked about in my last video, and I will link that below so that you can go back if you haven't seen that video and hear the specific steps to send someone prayer and to send someone light. Because what I've done is I've explained an expanded way to do this that really aligns with the will of divinity. It aligns with God's will for yourself and the other person. And it has a powerful energetic effect like this. So what Alfredo said was, obviously life went on, and, life takes its turns and you get into working and this kind of thing, is my impression of how his life went. But then some things had happened recently, as so many people have experienced, right? Where something has been happening in everyone's life. We've all been having these intense moments. And so he decided to pick up the phone and call one of his siblings. And they had a talk. And it was so amazing. And he was so struck by it that when he had this talk with his sibling, they had been through illness in the past year or two, which many people have been. And it was, it was somewhat serious. And the person told Alfredo that it had brought them back into relationship with God. And because later in life now, he's at a crossroads in his life, and he talks to the sibling, and the sibling has reunited their connection with God. And suddenly, this sparks his reuniting with this divine energy back into his life, and remembering his father who has passed, and remembering that his father prayed for him every day. And it was just an amazing story, because what I could see in my mind's eye, as an intuitive, I could see that all of these things were coming together to create an amazing, it is all coming together to create something amazing in his life. Now I'm going to refer back to my most recent video, which will be linked below, about prayer and light as directed energy. My intention here is to upgrade our understanding of essentially the science of how this works, of how you actually, in co-creation with God, with the divine, direct energy when you pray, how you direct energy when you send light, how you direct energy when you send love. And I'm building up to something, but it's important to understand this, because if you know how to do this, if you're a light worker, a spiritual warrior, a prayer warrior, prayer doer, you can really have an impact. And I feel that understanding how the energy works is helpful. I know it was helpful for me. So I'm going to explain this to you. And this is from my understanding that I have developed. I've developed these concepts over time. This is the image from the video where I explained about how energy works when you're praying for someone who's remote, meaning not in the room with you, although that would actually work similarly. It doesn't matter where the person is the point. They could be halfway across the world. But now what I'm going to explain is how the energy worked in Alfredo's story between his father and him, the father and the son. Okay, so from when he was a boy, his father was praying for him. Okay, so this circle represents the energy field of the father. The light of our son represents the soul connection. The father's body is in this circle, okay, but I'm focused on the energy rather than the physical, so I'm just showing the energy. Here's the son. At heart, he has that same soul-like connection, but he's a young boy at the beginning of this story, and then he goes and goes out and starts living his life and doing some crazy things when he's young, and then kind of forgetting about the closeness of his father with God until later in life. So I'm going to just cover over that bright soul connection, okay? Because this is what happens in our lives a lot of times. The other thing that can happen is if someone is in an intense situation where they're going through something where there's a lot of fear, where they're going through something where there's a lot of anger, or when they are experiencing being triggered by a situation that reminds them of a trauma from the past. In these situations, you can also have this feeling of the connection with God being covered over, even though it's actually right there. It can take a lot of work to get back in touch. Now, what the father was doing was praying for the son, and Alfredo said that his father's prayers made him want to be a better man. And this is how the energy works. Watch this. The father is essentially sending the prayer to the son. He is sending the energy. He is intending for his highest outcomes, which are more likely to occur if the son is fully connected with his own divinity. So when you send light, it looks like this. It could be different colors too, but when you send prayers, this is what you're doing. Okay, because when you send a prayer, you're sending energy of a divine quality. How do you do that as a human? Because you're invoking God, right? You're invoking your soul, which is, in my view, the part of source energy that you are, the spark of the creator that you are. It's that big. So I used Archangel Michael because he represents divine will. He is the embodiment of divine will. So the father invokes God, his connection with God. He invokes divine will. He prays for his child. Okay, so he sends this to the child. He sends his prayer to the child. The child perceives the higher light. It doesn't matter if he can see it, feel it. He somehow understands. He somehow knows. So what does the son attempt to do? He attempts to elevate himself because he knows his father's doing this for him. But it's also because his father is essentially emulating, role modeling this energy for him. It shows up outside the son's field, energy field, okay? And then it's between the son and his higher self and the son's choices as a human, what happens. But essentially, when the son perceives this light outside his field, he's like, I want to be like that. I want to be the best version of myself. I wish to uplevel myself. And so what is he doing? This here that's covering over is starting to shake, right? It's starting to shake. His own light is starting to peer out. I want to be a better man, okay? Or I wish to connect with God. And the wish for this can be so strong that we make choices that remove our separation from God, from the divine, from your own soul, so that you can become fully connected, in which case the sun now looks like this. Because the sun receives divine will. Here's Michael, right? Standing above his field. The sun receives divine will. Receives and asks for that direct connection with God's influence in his life. And this lights the center of his field and changes his life. This is the same mechanism I spoke of in Prayer as Directed Energy, that video. Here, a person in the United States is praying for a person in Afghanistan, halfway across the world. The mechanism I just described of the father praying for the son works exactly the same way. Here, this person in Afghanistan may be in terrible and dire circumstances. By sending the light by sending prayer. It helps to strengthen this person's connection with God, with their own inner light, with their soul in the moment of difficulty. It can even help break that up, so much so that they're able to reconnect with God in the moment. Now, I want to say something here, and that is, whether this person lives or dies, this technique benefits them. It can assist them in living through it. It can assist them in turning a dark situation to light in their own life. If the person passes away in the trauma, it can assist their soul light in their living human body to rise above the trauma they are experiencing. Sending the love and the light, sending the prayer, acts as a salve, number one, upon the trauma the person experiences, and number two, it acts as a guiding light, a remembrance of what the truth is of their being. And it can assist the soul from being trapped on the fourth dimension to finding its way home to the light. Okay? Finding its way home, to heaven, to the soul's home, to source energy. And that's a beautiful thing.